Everybody, I'd like to remind you that it was almost exactly a year ago that GPT-4 was announced by OpenAI. This right here, viewers, is my original GPT-4 announcement video released on March 15th, 2023. Now, today is March 5th, 2024, and it is the day after a big competitor to OpenAI, Anthropic, released Claude 3. This is an AI large language model very similar to OpenAI's GPT-4, except it's better. Keep in mind, viewers, this is something I really wanted to talk about yesterday, but I could not, due to the fact that I was feeling a little bit under the weather, and you can see that still today I'm not 100%, but I'm going to do my best. Yes, yesterday, March 4th, Anthropic announces Claude 3, the next generation of their AI models. It comes in 3 state-of-the-art models: Opus, which is the largest, Sonnet, which is their middle-sized medium model, and Haiku, which is their small, tiny little model. It sets industry-leading benchmarks across reasoning, math, coding, multilingual understanding, and vision capabilities. So yes, now Claude has vision just like GPT-4. So we're going to dive deep into Claude 3 today and get into the benchmarks, but I want to set the stage for the larger context at hand, because some crazy things are going on Twitter right now. Jeremy Howard, co-founder at Answer.ai, states it's going to be a big week, apparently, and we get a reply from Logan.gpt, who is a recently departed OpenAI employee, just says confirmed. So maybe he knows something about OpenAI that we don't. Maybe a drop, a hint at GPT-5. And obviously that's what all the replies are saying here. Everyone's really hyped about it. So it could be a lot bigger of a week than Claude 3. Of course, OpenAI had to release something on the same day that Anthropic did for some reason. So they just said ChatGPT can now read responses to you. A pretty nice feature, I suppose. At any rate, getting back to Claude 3 by Anthropic AI, which apparently could be overshadowed this week by a GPT-5. Anyways, you can see it about matches GPT-4 in terms of undergraduate level knowledge, handily beats GPT-4 in graduate level reasoning, and also handily beats GPT-4 in grade school math, as well as math problem solving, and really wipes it out of the park with multilingual math. And same thing with code, which is a pretty huge deal. We see a 67 here with 0 shot for GPT-4 and 85% for Claude 3's Opus. By the way, this is all the largest Claude 3 model. Reasoning over text is 3 points better here on 3-shot, and we see that also for mixed evaluations. So yeah, it's definitely a better model than GPT-4. I think that is pretty clear. Now keep in mind, these other models as well, the Sonnet and Haiku smaller models, are pretty competitive with GPT-4 as well, with Haiku coming just under GPT-4 level in pretty much all of these benchmarks, except in code it's actually quite a lot better. So Claude 3 Haiku could be the ultimate coding model if you want to generate vast quantities of code, because of course when we get to pricing here, Haiku is much cheaper than even GPT 3.5. And Sonnet seems to go head to head with GPT-4 in a lot of different areas, with GPT-4 winning in some areas and Sonnet winning in some areas. But Opus, like I said, overall just better than GPT-4. I also want to really quick touch on some community reactions. Matt Wolf notes that Claude 3 is really good. For Wolf, Opus built a working mini-game in just a single prompt, and Sonnet built the game in 2 prompts. ChatGPT struggled still after several prompts. Both versions did better than ChatGPT at summarizing long documents, and were equally as good as ChatGPT at describing images, creative writing, and avoiding biases. However, in Wolf's testing here, ChatGPT did outperform both versions of Claude with a complex logic problem. And he's also going to be releasing a video today, so keep a lookout for that. Wolf always produces good videos. Now, Sully makes a great point here on Twitter, saying, did Anthropic just kill every small model out there? If I'm reading this right, Haiku benchmarks almost as good as GPT-4, but is priced at 25 cents per a million tokens, which absolutely blows GPT 3.5 and open source solutions out of the water. Haiku is 40 times cheaper than GPT-4 Turbo, turbo and is nearly as good. Sully notes it's priced at nearly a 7B sized model on the open source market and is quite a bit better. So this is a pretty big deal here with the smallest model. This might be where Anthropic takes the throne from OpenAI in some certain ways, just beats it out in outright pricing for performance. Matt Schumer on Twitter also notes that between Claude and Gemini 1.5 Pro, the era of 1 million plus token context windows is officially here, showing off the recall accuracy over 200,000 token context windows and how perfect it really is, 99% accuracy. And they do this by using something called a needle in a haystack evaluation, which puts a random little piece of text that shouldn't be there inside a massive large body of text, and it was able to point it out and recognize it. The question is, if this model is perfect at 200,000 tokens, how will it perform at something like 1 million tokens? You'll notice here that they're initially offering 200,000 tokens, but they are saying that all three models are capable of accepting inputs exceeding 1 million tokens. So really awesome point by Matt Schumer here. Before we actually dive in and test this model out, for which they have some quick examples that are pretty cool, they actually have some demo videos I want to take a peek at so we can see this model in action as Claude portrays it, or as Anthropic portrays it. So first up, guys, we're going to take a look at Claude 3 as an economic analyst.
See if Claude and a couple of friends can help us analyze the world economy in a matter of minutes. I've asked Claude 3 Opus, which is the largest model in Anthropic's new Claude 3 family, to look at the GDP trends for the US and write down a markdown table of what it sees. We've given Opus, and all the other models in the Claude 3 family, extensive training on tool use, and one of the major tools it's using is this web view tool. It goes to a URL, looks at what's on the page, and because it's multimodal, it can use the information on that page to solve complex problems. So here's the markdown, and it's important to note that Claude doesn't have direct access to these numbers. It's literally looking at this same browser you and I are seeing, looking at the trend line, and trying to estimate what the exact numbers are. Let's see how accurate it was. We've asked the model to create a plot of the data, and it's used this second tool, this Python interpreter, to write out the code and then render the image for us to check. And here's the image. Look, it's actually added helpful little tooltip animations to explain some of the major peaks and troughs in the last decade or two of the US economy. And we can compare that graph with the actual data, and it turns out it's pretty close. It's actually within 5% accuracy. And by the way, Claude's transcription here isn't just coming from its pre-existing knowledge of US GDP. We tried it with a large sample of made-up GDP graphs, and its transcription accuracy was within 11% on average. Next, we asked the model to do some statistical analysis, projecting out into the future, performing simulations to see where the GDP of the US might head. And we can see that it's run this analysis using Python, and it's able to perform these Monte Carlo simulations to see what the range of GDP possibilities might look like for the next decade or so. But I wonder if we can go further. We're going to get the model to analyze a more complicated question, that is, how GDP might change across all of the biggest world economies. And then to help it do that, we're going to give it one more tool called Dispatch Subagents. This basically allows the model to break down the problem into lots of subproblems and then write prompts for other versions of itself to help pick up the slack. The models can then complete a more complex task by all working together. Here you can see it's written this prompt and given very precise instructions that it wants the other models to follow, including a format for the data that it's hoping to return. It's dispatched a version of this prompt to one model that's going to look at the US, one for China, one for Germany, Japan, and so on. And we can see in these progress bars that the subagent models are now completing the set task for each of the individual economies. They're going to the relevant web pages, they're getting the information, they're running the code to analyze it, just like we saw in the previous US example, but all in parallel. Let's just skip forward to see what the model produced. You can see it's run the analysis, it's produced a pre and post pie chart of how it expects the world economy to look in 2030 versus 2020, and it's given us a written analysis too, where it makes verbal predictions that relate to the statistical analysis that it ran. It's telling us that it thinks the GDP share of particular economies will change and which ones will be larger or smaller by 2030. So there we have it. Complex, multi-step, multimodal analysis run by a model that can create subagents to get even more tasks running in parallel.
Out of everything I've seen from Claude 3 online and heard people talking about, I've never seen anyone mention this coming soon. Tool use with function calling, sure, that's something that we've already seen, but the ability to dispatch multiple AI agents at once is not something we've seen from any of the major players so far. I mean, we've definitely seen it for sure, and it's worked, with varying degrees of success in the past, but we have not seen it from any of the big players, Meta AI, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic. This is definitely a first, and OpenAI should be the most scared, I think, about that possibility right there, the ability to dispatch multiple agents at once with these very high-level GPT-4 capable or better models to do all different kinds of function calling and wrap it all up in one. That is some of the most advanced tool use and problem solving I've ever seen a large language model do that's multimodal, point blank period. That is absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah, see, I asked a question that we'll get to at the end of the video today. I think that just made my answer for me. Okay, so now we're taking a look at the vision capabilities.
One of the fastest and most affordable vision-capable models in the world. To demonstrate this, we're going to read through thousands of scanned documents in a matter of minutes. The Library of Congress Federal Writers Project is a collection of thousands of scanned transcripts from interviews during the Great Depression. This is a goldmine of incredible narratives and real-life heroes, but it's locked away in hard-to-access scans of transcripts. Imagine you're a documentary filmmaker or journalist. How can you dig through these thousands of messy documents to find the best source material for your research without reading them all yourself? Since these documents are scanned images, we can't feed them into a text-only LLM, and these scans are messy enough that they would be a challenge for most dedicated OCR software. But luckily, Haiku is natively vision capable and can use surrounding text to transcribe these images and really understand what's going on. We can also go beyond simple transcription for each interview and ask Haiku to generate structured JSON output with metadata like title, date, keywords, but also use some creativity and judgment to assess how compelling a documentary the story and characters would be. We can process each document in parallel for performance, and with Claude's high availability API, do that at massive scale for hundreds or thousands of documents. Let's take a look at some of that structured output. Haiku is able to not just transcribe, but pull out creative things like keywords. We've transformed this collection of many scans into rich keyword structured data. Imagine what any organization with a knowledge base of scanned documents, like a traditional publisher, healthcare provider, or law firm, can do. Haiku can parse their extensive archives and bodies of work. We'd love for you to try it out and see what you build.
The ability to, look at hundreds of different images at once compared to the paltry 4 that you can look at once with GPT-4 Vision, that's pretty awesome. And the ability to just transcribe all of it accurately and then have it do all of this extra work is pretty awesome. This requires a high level of context coherence, which is something we already talked about earlier in the video. I think this is another step up, essentially, from what we currently get with GPT-4 in terms of vision capabilities. Upload this many documents at once, transcribe them, and use them all in a great big context. That's quite fascinating. Not as crazy as the last thing we saw, but still pretty awesome and still absolutely industry leading. Alright, so now we're taking a look at Claude 3 as a language learning partner.
Agent that will talk with you in a language that you're trying to learn. So I chose Spanish, and I wanted it to basically take my imperfect Spanish and help me improve it. So I decided I wanted it to do a few things. I wanted it to take my message, which will be in kind of imperfect Spanish, and write out what it thinks I intended in English. I then ask it to write back the ideal learner message, which is just my message as it kind of should have been written in Spanish, so I can see the kind of ideal form of this. Then I ask it to write a teacher response, which is just a response to me in Spanish, so that I can continue the conversation. And here it's following the format that I asked for, so it's repeating the message that I tried to send it back to me in English. It's telling me how I should have said it, so it's corrected some of the grammar issues in my request. And then it's responded to me in Spanish. And then it's asked me where I'm from. So, okay, now imagine I don't know a certain word in Spanish, but I still want to say it. I'm going to just include that word in English in square brackets, and hopefully it'll just translate it back to me. And suppose I hit a roadblock because I just don't understand the message that it's sent to me. I can just ask it to translate that message to me into English, and then I can read that and I can respond to it again in Spanish, continuing the dialogue. And as a final step, you could ask Sonnet to create a little quiz for you based on the things that you've been discussing. So hopefully that is a useful prompt if you're interested in using Sonnet as a language learning partner.
I'd say that was mildly impressive, definitely knows different languages and the convergences between them, but I would expect that level of performance regardless. So guys, they do have a nice blog post here if you want to get a little bit deeper into things, but we really touched on the main important points, I believe. If you guys want to get access to the better Claude Opus, that's $20 a month, which is the same as ChatGPT Plus. I honestly think it's a little bit too much, considering ChatGPT Plus has a lot of features, but maybe if they start to give us more features, it would be worth it. Let's go ahead and start out with a very simple image test. I'm going to upload my logo, say describe this image for me. Alright, so testing out Sonnet here, we see that the image recognition is not as good as GPT-4's, but again, this is the free version. It's a cute and playful 3D stylized character or robot. That's fair. Yellow body, smiling expression, curved eyes, has a rectangular area that's a visor for sure, but it also thinks that it has white arms or protrusions on the side, which I assume are these pieces. That's a part of the headset, and that's a sort of hallucination or borderline hallucination that you just don't see with GPT-4 vision. So let's see if we upgrade to Opus if that improves. Now we're on Opus, the most intelligent model. We'll try this same exact prompt, and we get a way better result. The image depicts a 3D rendered character that resembles a cute smiling lemon or citrus fruit. Absolutely true. Rounded lemon-shaped body, vibrant yellow color, on top is a green leaf. Yes. The most prominent feature is its black visor or screen that covers up the upper half of the body. Serves as the character's face with a simple smile displayed on it. Okay, it's not displayed directly on the visor, so we'll have to take some points off for that. Glossy smooth texture, I would say, is correct. Very impressive, I would say. Comparing it directly to GPT-4 vision, we get a very similar result. Stylized lemon character against a vibrant green background, single leaf on top, cartoonish, white-rimmed goggles, lenses that cover where the eyes would be. I would say that this portion of the description where it talks about the goggles is a little more accurate than Anthropic's description. However, overall, they're like almost neck and neck, and this is a pretty difficult image prompt. Alright, so now I'm going to upload a photo of my dog and ask it what breed of dog it is. This is something that Google failed last time at. Ooh, internal server error. Oh, come on, we can't have the ChatGPT level servers here with Claude, especially if you're paying $20 a month. Okay, alright, so breed of dog finally went through, and it is absolutely correct. Very accurate description here. So that was a little bit of an easier test, but still difficult to pinpoint an exact breed. I want to give that a try with Sonnet as well. And Sonnet also gets it correct, which I like to see. So the image recognition capabilities are really quite good. Which is heavier, a pound of photons or a pound of bricks? Sending this off to Opus. This is a bit of a trick question. Oh, wow, it got it right. I love to see that. A pound is a unit of mass, not weight. Photons are massless particles, so it doesn't really make sense to talk about a pound of photons. Oh my god, it's playing along too. We could say a pound of photons is heavier in the sense that photons have energy, and energy is equivalent to mass according to Einstein's famous equation E equals mc squared. The energy of a photon depends on its frequency. If we assume a frequency of green light, then using E equals hf, where h is Planck's constant, a single photon has energy of about 4x10 to the negative 19 joules. Converting a pound to kilograms and using E equals mc squared, this works about to 2x 10 to the 31st photons being equivalent to a pound of mass. A pound of photons represents a stupendous amount of energy, far more than the chemical energy stored in a pound of bricks. Wow, anyone that is good at math, let me know if that's correct, because I would have no idea if that's correct. I am really impressed by that. Let's toss the same exact trick question at GPT-4. A pound of photons and a pound of bricks both weigh the same, a pound. However, the concept of weighing photons is tricky because the photons are particles of light and do not have mass in the traditional sense. They have energy. Okay, so it's bringing up E equals mc squared again. It kind of breaks it down in a little bit more of a simple way. I don't know whether or not I like the response from GPT-4 better or Claude's Opus. I think this one is more interesting in the fact that it did the math. If this math is correct, I think it'd be pretty fun. I think it actually tried to tackle the question a little bit more, which is really interesting. So now we're going to try Opus on some really insanely specific knowledge. You guys might know that I'm a car guy, so we're going to do some very specific car-based knowledge. Alright, we'll start out light here. I'm going to have it try to complete a sentence. Alright, so far so good. Gives some really solid information about something fairly nuanced. Now finish this. Oh, we actually got it to break here. This is close to being accurate, however, this sentence of information is inaccurate. When it gets really nuanced though, it can still get tripped up, so that's important to note. August 2023 is the training data cutoff. That's not too bad. Overall, I am very impressed with Claude 3. I do think that Opus is probably a little bit better than GPT-4, however, the image capabilities seem to actually be a little bit more neck and neck than their benchmarks would like to seem. I think that the massive thing for Claude 3 is going to be that ability to analyze information in such an accurate way by utilizing other agents. That first little demo video we saw was absolutely mind-blowing. Now, circling around to what I mentioned earlier, on Twitter I said, will Claude 3 force OpenAI to drop GPT-5? Nathan Land says, I think so. Sean Ralston here says, Opus pricing is pretty crazy. A lot of people say, no, I think they'll release a GPT 4.5 first. And honestly, I didn't know what my personal answer was until I saw that video. The fact that Anthropic has Claude 3 working well with multiple agents at once, able to divvy up work and do, a million token potential context window is pretty massive. I think that's something that would force OpenAI's hand here, at least in the relatively near future. And if what we saw at the beginning of the video with the little hint from an ex-OpenAI employee, GPT-5 might very well be right around the corner. And agents are going to be, I think, the theme for 2024. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, but thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and goodbye.